good afternoon, Dr. Sriram, and welcome to our IPF exclusive interview for the day.
Good afternoon.
So before we begin, can you just explain what is Syrma Technology all about, and what is your role in the company?
Yeah, sure. See, Syrma Technology is a private company, part of the Tandon Group. The Tandon Group itself is more than 42 years in India in the electronics hardware space. So among various companies that they invested in over the 40 years, Syrma Technology was invested in 2005-6. So we have been in existence for almost 15-16 years now. We operate in various spaces: healthcare, automotive, IT products, industrial. So these are some of the domains that we operate in, and we make electronics hardware. One part of the business is a pure ODM business where we do design and manufacturing. The other side is service, manufacturing services, EMS. So we offer design services, we offer manufacturing services, we also offer prototyping and repair and rework services. So this is broadly our portfolio today. And we are, as Syrma, we are probably about 85% exports to major names in the market globally, and about 15 to 20% is domestic part, which is also growing for us. So eventually we will probably be about 60%, 40% export to domestic ratio. Today we are about 85, 15, 80, 20, you can say. So that quickly is an introduction of Syrma Technology per se.
So mostly your clients will be from the electronics industry?
Not necessarily. See, we have clients, when I say industrial, we have clients in the white goods segment. We have clients in process control equipment. We have clients in auto lighting. And then I mentioned healthcare space. So there could be, healthcare could be multiple, it could be personal hygiene and healthcare, and also something related to healthcare, like you are trying to measure or control things in a place which stores pharmaceuticals. So you may have an IoT product that controls the environment in a place like that. Or we could have air conditioning, electronics for air conditioners. So these are broadly the spaces. So not necessarily everything would be electronics companies. These would be, today with IoT becoming more and more prevalent everywhere, we have right from toothbrushes to footwear to everything there is an element of electronics added to everything. So everything is becoming smart today. So more and more we will see that our portfolio is broadening into domains that we probably never were in the past. So that's the kind of evolution we are seeing, not only for us, but for all the electronics companies which are into the Internet of Things kind of products.
So to sum it up, it's basically wherever electronics are going to be there, your role, you will be there, your company will play a role there.
Yeah, correct. Very well summed up. Yeah.
So as a CEO of the company, given the background of COVID since last year, the start of last year, what are your priorities at present?
See, because of our healthcare portfolio, we have pretty much worked, except for the first 3 or 4 weeks after the initial lockdown, we have been working with lot of precautions, of course, trying to create a very healthy environment inside and instilling a lot of confidence in our workforce. We have been working on these products which are healthcare related, essential goods. So we have, I would say, we have not been hit too badly by COVID on the manufacturing side, but we have had huge challenges both on the availability of materials, the logistics, the cost of logistics, and then the delays in getting the materials on time. The customers have been very patient with us. Fortunately, they have been very understanding, very patient with our challenges. But at the same time, I think a few customers have had to put a lot of pressure on us as well and help us also in that whole sequence of events. Help us also because they could bring their power in the market to play and get us the parts that we wanted. So yeah, I mean, it has been challenging times, a lot of volatility in the market, uncertainty that we had to overcome. So we had to keep our people well motivated. And one side there was this fear of COVID. On the other side, they were worried that there is too much uncertainty. Will this happen? Will this not happen? So we have had to carry a little more inventory than we would normally would. So some of the efficiency parameters we kind of loosened up a little bit, considering the situation in the market. But all in all, I think we are, we are very fortunate that the customers have been working throughout the COVID, because we have a lot of overseas customers, and there has been steady stream of orders for us to work on. So we have been able to keep our people busy and safe and healthy at the same time. Yeah.
Okay, so your manufacturing unit is based in Chennai?
See, we have 5 different locations for our manufacturing. So we have 2 in Chennai itself, inside the MEPS. And then we have one in a place called Uttaramerur, which is about 100 kilometers from south of Chennai. And then we have also a plant in Bargur, which is between Chennai and Bangalore, somewhere near Krishnagiri, Hosur. And then we have one in Bawal in Haryana, which is about 90 minutes from Delhi airport.
So you mentioned about 80%, 85% of your revenue comes from abroad. So,
Right.
So what's the spread like? Which are the regions the countries contribute to your turnover?
I would say mainly US and Europe. These are the places where our products go to. So that and then if you look into Europe, probably Germany, Austria, and France. So these are the places into which our products go into, and then some to England. Some to England also.
So how do you see the effect of second wave compared to the first wave, given the fact that US and Europe has been relatively, they are coming out of a shutdown and markets are opening up. So how do you see the effect of second wave, COVID wave on your business?
Second wave was very difficult. Definitely, we had to go much slow down quite a bit during the second wave. Our absenteeisms were as high as 30-40% on some days. Slowly, that people are coming back today, but especially in the north and other places. But we have had to suffer a lot of absenteeism, and I don't blame the people because they were afraid. But we tried to create a situation where they felt that it was safer to, in fact, go and work in the factory than be in the village or be in their own homes. So that is the kind of thing that we created, with hand washing, washing stations, with giving them sanitizers, checking their temperatures when they come in and come out, giving them masks, having a doctor on call 24/7 so that she could quickly advise them, because every little thing they're now scared about. Even a common cold, they assume that it is COVID. So the doctor is there to tell them, looking at your symptoms, it's nothing. I mean, you will be fine tomorrow morning. Don't worry. And so having the doctor there and giving them immediate help, and also people who had symptoms which were close to COVID, to quickly isolate them, to move them, to decide whether they need home isolation or. So they felt that going to the factory or plant is good because you will get quick, free advice on what is really happening. And if at all there are somebody with symptoms in their village or in their home, they can also talk about that to the doctor and say, look, this is what I'm seeing. Do I stay home or do I come to the factory? So that way, I think they liked coming to work, or we created a situation where they would feel very safe coming to work and interacting with people.
So I'm talking about in terms of business. How has been the business inquiry
See,
coming better than the last wave, or it's same as before?
I would say same to better. In fact, even during the first wave, most of our customers kept working. But second wave, we have added more customers to our portfolio. So to that extent, lots of orders to. So in all this, in spite of all the COVID and everything, our growth was quite significant last year. In sales growth. What we normally would do in 12 months, we did it in that 9.5, 10 months that we worked. And so the order book has been very steady. So that adds to a little bit of pressure, especially when materials are not coming as quickly as we wanted, or people are not coming, there's absenteeism. But we have been able to somehow pull through. We are constantly dialoguing with our customers, and they do understand, because global logistics and component shortages are everywhere. It's not just us. So they do understand, and see, as I told you, we are also a design services company, which means we are able to quickly go back and suggest alternate parts for them, alternates quickly, so that they are able to check if that will work, and so that helps. If we are a pure play manufacturing services company, we wouldn't probably be able to look into their design and say, look, these are interchangeable components, why don't you take this? So that way, having a design services and a manufacturing service under the same roof helps a lot. We have also had some new customers who are consigning the materials to us from, say, China or Taiwan. So that also helps, because they have channels which are still open and which are quite strong. And they have also been able to help us not only on their parts, but other parts. So yeah, the order book has been very steady and growing. So to that extent, it's a challenge to adhere to those schedules. And while the customer is understanding, but he cannot be 100% understanding, right? He also needs to do business. So yeah, I would say, thanks to the team which is working probably doubly hard in these times across functions, I think we've been able to kind of keep things afloat in the last few months, especially in the second wave.
So how is the electronics manufacturing services market globally and in India?
See, globally, I think the market size is around $6 trillion today, if give or take a few billion. And in that, I think China, of course, is close to 40% of that. India is 1/10 of that, 3%, 3.3%, which still makes up for a significant number. Almost $200 billion is the size of our market, which probably is a big increase from, say, 5-6 years back, when it was probably half that number. And of course, mostly driven by mobile phones. We know the story on the mobile phones. There's been a revolution brewing in India, both for exports and for manufacturing, local manufacturing. And I think we are trying to replicate that in other areas as well, apart from mobile phones. So that's where the global market is vis-a-vis the Indian market. And I think the projection of 400 billion size of the Indian market by 2024 or 2025 looks like a reality. When we first looked at these numbers 5 years back, we said, where are we going to come up with these numbers? Who came up with these numbers? But we probably had a blind spot at that time. We didn't realize that the smartphone market, the mobile phone market will really grow. So we are actually kind of dreaming that in 10 years we would even be, or less than 10 years we would even be $1 trillion dollars in India, because half a trillion should happen by 2026. Why not 1 trillion by end of the year? So those are the kind of numbers I'm hearing when I listen to experts in this business. So that would be good. That would really take us to double digits as a share in the global market. Today we are 3% or 3.5%.
So what kind of opportunities does EMS market offers to a company like Simra?
Huge. See, 1 year back before the pandemic, I would have said, look, US is very, very China focused when it comes to manufacturing. You talk about design, they warm up to you if you're coming from India. But if you talk about manufacturing, they're very polite with you. They are not warming up, right? They give you good coffee, but that's about it. I mean, you're not going to get any orders. Today, that situation has actually changed, not only for us, but for the rest of our colleagues in the industry. The customer is willing to, the US customers especially, and also in Europe, willing to look at China plus one at least, if not pull away everything out of China, because the scale, it will take a long time for us to replicate. The component ecosystem is not there in India. In spite of that, the customer says, look, I've got China as the primary source, but I'm willing to put significant share of business with you if you can prove that you are capable of delivering. So that way, I think we have started to get a stream of new orders, new customers, new products to make, and they're willing to take that risk and start working with an Indian company. So that's our experience, but I'm very sure that is the experience that the other leaders of the EMS market, EMS business in India are seeing as well.
You have worked with many of the leading global brands as well as startups. Would you like to narrate an interesting incident or project that you have handled?
Recent one or
any
slightly? No, see, there was a product for oral healthcare, a smart toothbrush, for which we started working with a global OEM almost 4 or 5 years prior to the launch of the product. So this was a very interesting product. It was an IoT product. So we were in fact recommended by one of our suppliers who supplied us chips for other products, saying that this is a very good company who can both design and manufacture. So we got recommended because he was also one of the parties in the whole business. He was going to supply the chipset, and somebody was going to convert that into a product, and eventually it was going to go into a bigger product. So that particular project, we worked from day one. We did something called concept co-creation. That means customer really had a concept of a product. He didn't really have the product or he didn't know how the product is going to look like. We worked with the customer for 2 years to come up with a concept, with a product which fitted his concept, fitted his functional requirements and fit requirements. So function, fit, aesthetics, it had everything in it, and we were able to come up with a product that was satisfactory to this global giant. And so initially the projection was very moderate. They projected maybe annually we would take 30 million of these, right? And this was not an easy product to make also. This had 14-15 process steps before it would become the product to be sold. So we said fine. So by the time we started to ramp up towards the 30 million per year, the customer already came back and told us, sorry, this year the projection has changed. It's not going to be 30 million, it's going to be 50 million. So we had to not only add more capacity, but we had to ramp up in a very, very quick manner. by the time we thought we had got to a capacity of 50 million, where we could do 50 million, the number had changed to 60. So we ended up delivering almost 61, 62 million that year, by very, very quick action. But that was because we were also the ones who designed the product. So very quickly we could figure out what will work in manufacturing, what will not work. And thanks to the fact that we could quickly leverage people, training, skills, we weren't waiting for everything to be automated, right? The idea was for that kind of volume in other countries, they would automate end to end, 15 stages. So you put something on this end and the outcomes, the product at the other end. We didn't wait for that kind of elegant setup. We said, let's just do it manually, right? Let's train people to produce high quality products manually or semi-automatically. So we did automation in certain stages which required automation, but where there's a lot of handling and other things, we just said let's train our people to do this manually, and that's how we created this huge capacity in a short time. So that is really the strength of India. No, we have people who are skillable, who work very dedicated way. We have, in this line, 95% of the employees were girls between the age of 20 and 25, 30. So they had the right dedication, attitude, wanting to learn, wanting to skill up, and then really, come to work every day and give it their best. So we could create this wonderful example of what India can do, because I'm very sure this global OEM believed that only China can do such things. In fact, last couple of years we delivered more than 120 million of these per annum. So which means we are delivering almost 3 million per week, of this product. And it's not like a 1, 2, 3 stages and out. It's 15 stages that we have to go through before, so we set up lines. So that I would say is a wonderful example of combining India's strengths of design, the ability to create a product from concept, design the manufacturing, and then actually make the manufacturing happen. And at the speed at which the customer wants it, to ramp up to levels that probably only China, Vietnam, and a few other countries can do. We were able to prove to them, and I'm very sure we did a great service to our country, because they must be saying, look, if this is what India can do, we were not sure about this, but looks like India is also capable of. So it's not only helping ourselves, but helping the country and many of our colleagues in the industry, who must also have a very good impression from their customers, that we can ramp up. So that way it was doubly sweet for us.
In India, the consumption of electronics, be it mobile or in general electronics in all the other gadgets like automobile and other things, are increasing. But the imports of this is also a concern for India. So what are the reasons for India not scaling up to the extent that it has to meet the domestic requirement, and it has to still dependent on imports in electronics?
No, good question. I think we probably have to go back 20, 25 years to say what kind of decisions and policy decisions we made at the time, but I don't want to go into that. I mean, that's history, and depending on who's reciting the history, you will hear different stories. But somewhere we fell behind, right? We raced ahead in software, but we somehow fell behind in hardware. And China took the hardware and we took the software. So we have every right to feel proud, because software, we are a cerebral people, right? Software must have made eminent sense at that time to get into. It needed very little infrastructure. We had a lot of people to do it with a lot of brains. So I think we fell behind, but I think we realized, in the middle of 2000 to 2010 that we have fallen behind. So we came up with special incentive packages for electronics manufacturing. which was carried forward in spite of changes in government, etc. That policy was carried forward, and I think it's done a lot of good for us, but we still are playing catch up, which means we did in automotive and auto components, where we woke up in 94, 95, middle of 90s. We really knew that this is what we had to do. We had to protect our Indian industry for a few years and then open it up for open competition. We didn't have time for all that in electronics, because we had fallen behind and we had to catch up very quickly. But still, I think in spite of all the handicaps of this, we are catching up very fast. The phased manufacturing programs have helped, and once we found that those are helping, I think government actually is one step ahead of us in policy making, especially when it comes to electronics hardware. In the last 3-4 years, I think they have been very, very proactive, talking to the industry, saying what can we do differently. So I think that situation is going to change in the next. But see, it needs time, right? You can't wake up tomorrow morning and say, why is India still dependent on imports? It's going to happen. It's happening. It's happening. Every day we hear of certain policies that are coming out that will help towards improving our share in the market, and reducing the dependence on imports. But today we can start making all the end products in India, but still we would be dependent on imports for the components, right? So, which means that you have to create a component infrastructure, and that takes a long time. That takes first convincing leaders in that component industry to come to India and set up shop. So the government is now saying, let's have production linked incentives, PLIs for multiple segments, multiple domains. They have announced PLI. They are willing to kind of put money, invest money to do the catch up, So yeah, I mean, government is trying to do as much as it can. It's now for us in the industry to take advantage of these proactive policies and say, let's move much faster than we were moving in the past. So that's also what we are doing. I think given left to itself, I think Indian entrepreneurship and the sense of enterprise is fantastic. People can really take, you give them a little bit of room to work. I think they do amazing things, and that's the kind of spirit of entrepreneurship that exists in this country. So I'm very positive that given that, and given the small incentives that the government is starting to give, and it will also grow as we go along, I think people will come out and start investing. I'm seeing that already. There is individual entrepreneurs, companies, private companies, public limited companies willing to invest large amounts of money and commit themselves to electronics hardware manufacturing, which is wonderful to see. Wonderful to see. So, what triggered it? You could put your finger on so many reasons what triggered it, but I think the pandemic in the long run we look back after a few years, we may say, look, many good things happened also. We unfortunately lost a lot of lives. We had a lot of people suffering, but at the same time, a lot of good things happened, which really is good for the country and its people in the long term. Because we would have reinvented ourselves in this whole process. We would have really seriously and critically looked at building infrastructure, which is already happening given the budget support for infrastructure. And then ecosystem for electronics, which is probably, after petrol and gold, is probably the third biggest or the fourth biggest imports bill for us. I think there's a lot of, we'll probably look back in this pandemic period and say we really took definitive action towards reducing our dependence on imports and bring global leaders to India. I think that will happen.
So you just now mentioned about production incentive scheme for the electronics and other industries. Do you think this is going to be a very important step towards reducing imports in electronics? That's one part. Second thing is also the China one policy, which has been which the global companies are adopting in many sectors. So this too will be very important, things for Indian electronics industry to grow.
Yes, I think so. To answer your first question, see, PLI scheme by itself may not be, giving great support, but it has created a spark. It has provided the spark for the entrepreneurship to kind of bloom again, and investments to really come into this business. So it has triggered a lot of thought. It has provided the spark. I think going forward there will be more and more support. But I think end of the day, I think it's created a lot of awareness among our investors to say let's put money in this area because government is very keen on this. Government is willing to support, and going forward they'll continue to support with policies. So I think that one move of PLIs and various segments is going to help. It's also important to know that more than the 4 or 5 or 6%, 2%, 3% incentive, it is sending a strong message to all of us in the industry that look, government is actually listening to you and it's willing to do something about what you have been saying. It's listened to you and it's proactive. It's creating, the right environment for this. That gives a lot of confidence to an investor, right? When you say the government is behind me, it's working with me, along with me, it creates a lot of there's a lot of moral strength that comes out of something like that. And with proactivity that we are seeing today, and then they are willing to have dialogues with us, talk to us, ask us pointed questions on what support we need. I think that itself will create a big spark and a big momentum towards what we want to achieve. Number one. Number two, China plus one. Yes, it's very, very good to see that most companies, American and other European companies have started seriously looking at China plus one. Having said that, I think a lot of China plus one opportunities have landed up in Vietnam and Thailand and Philippines and other places. India hasn't been a big recipient or beneficiary of a lot of China plus one, but still the market is so large, so big that even that small percentage that is coming to India is making a big difference for us. End of the day, I think like we saw in the past in many policies when the economy opened up, I think our market itself is the biggest help for us. Our people are our biggest strength for us. See, when I mentioned 3 countries here, Thailand, Vietnam, and Philippines, end of the day, they are going to be very, very dependent on exporting their products. Whereas India, we have design as a strength, number one, and number two, we have a domestic market which needs a lot of parts. So even if you acquire the capabilities, the Americans are giving you only say 3% of the 30% that they are globally distributing to China plus one. We are getting only 10% of that. But at the same time, that is actually going to give you a lot of capability building that is going to happen, right? Capacity building, which eventually the domestic market will anyway pick up, right? The domestic market will not keep quiet. They will say, look, if you can make these products, I want it. That's what happened in mobile phones, right? End of the day, we do export a lot of mobile phones today, but end of the day, who's picking up these mobile phones? Our own country. We all thought this country will not graduate beyond a simple mobile phone. Today we have smartphones. That market is growing tremendously in India, right? And people have more than one phone. Every household has at least 3 phones, 4 phones. That is going to improve the value that proposition. The values are going up. Per phone prices. People are willing to because they do a lot of things get done through a phone today, so a feature phone versus a smartphone, they realize that a lot of their business, because we know that India, a lot of people are self-employed, a good proportion. I think the number is about 40% are self-employed, and the self-employed people realize that a lot of work can get done with their smartphone, right from banking to where they used to go stand in a queue, or to even to deposit money or to get a DD or something. Today they're doing their payments on Paytm, so it cuts a lot of time, opens up a lot of their time for real work. So that kind of stuff, when everything starts to become smart, thanks to electronics, I think the domestic market is actually going to bail us out, and we have, our last count, we probably have the population of US is our middle class, right? And that's going to grow as our GDP, per capita GDP grows. I think we are going to bring more and more people into, we may have suffered a little bit of a drop during the pandemic, but post pandemic, we will again, come up. And that's been the resilience of this country. People are not scared of uncertainty. They have lived with uncertainty, in spite of all the volatility, the uncertainty, they have still, progressed. And that's the beauty of India, right? In spite of all the chaos that a Western eye sees, we don't see the chaos, right? For us, in all the chaos, there is a certain order.
We enjoy chaos.
Yeah, we have learned to live with it. I don't know if we enjoy chaos, but we have learned to live with that kind of an uncertain situation or a volatile situation. And see, we as a country believe that no problem is too big for us to not solve by sitting down and talking about it, and that's a huge strength. We don't even talk about that. We underestimate that strength. How many countries really are willing to resolve conflicts by just sitting and talking about it over a cup of tea? We don't even realize that we possess that wonderful strength. We don't believe in violence immediately, right? We resolve our conflicts through dialogue, whatever be the conflict. It could be religious, it could be social, whatever. We have a way of resolving conflicts through dialogue in this country. So that's a wonderful thing. That's the fabric that I think holds us all up, in spite of all the difficulties we have faced for the last so many hundreds of years, and we'll continue to face at least for another 2-3 decades before everything stabilizes a little bit. And then we have a young population, so that's a great thing. So which means that China Plus One is very good, because it will build capacities, it will build capabilities, it will bring technology to the country. But end of the day, I think our own domestic market is what will bail us out.
Okay.
It'll make us grow. And that's one simple reason why Sirma say, I right at the beginning, I said 85-15 today, but we think it will become 60-40, right? So that itself should have given you an idea that we think that the domestic market. So our Bawal plant is in the domestic tariff area. Our Bargur plant is in the domestic tariff area. The other plant that I talked about in near Chennai is in the domestic tariff area. We have only 2 plants out of 5 which are in the special economic zone for export. So that itself should tell you that, look, we also think that the domestic market is going to become very, very important for us. And this is a company which has traditionally done 85-90% exports over the last 15 years. And we are saying we have to be careful about the domestic market. We have to get serious about the domestic market. I think that's where the opportunity is. So that's a clear statement from somebody like Sirma.
So globally, there is a a challenge of chips shortage.
Yes.
So what is first of all, what is the reason for this, and the second part is the impact of this on the industries in India?
Very interesting question. I may have to give you a simple answer. See, there are a lot of theories floating around on why there is a chip shortage, Many people say the mobile 5G, all that started growing much faster than anticipated. Everyone thought the pandemic will put a dampener on all those, but they are growing much faster than we thought they would grow. So that's a simple answer to the thing. But I think there are multiple reasons. I don't want to say there is an artificial scarcity being created, but I think if you look at the historical data of the last 10 years in the chip, and I've been talking about it way back in 2016, 17, not today. We have seen the chip manufacturing industry consolidating, acquiring each other rather than creating more capacity, because to create capacity at the time cost people $8 billion. I'm talking 2017, $7 to $8 billion, and it took 3 years for a foundry to be set up. And nobody was willing to invest in new foundries at that time. They were buying each other up. Instead of 15 players, we had suddenly 5 big players. Toshiba got acquired. This person got acquired. So they were actually increasing capacity by consolidation, right? And not through capex and investment. And so when something like a pandemic happened, it had nothing to do with the pandemic. I'm saying even without the pandemic, more and more and more industries were getting into electronics. Because I told you at the beginning, everything was becoming smarter, which means everything started to have an electronic component to it, right? See, I'll give you a simple example. 2016, I attended a CII conference on Indian electronics in Indian automotive industry. People said, we'll be about 5%, and in 5 to 10 years, we'll be 20% of the car will be electronics. The 20% happened in less than 2 years. Now they are talking 50% of the Indian car will be electronics. Nobody even projected more than 20% in that conference, 4 years back. Which means if India, the electronics component of the vehicle is becoming 50%, you can imagine overseas what's the thing. I'll give you one other example. I'm told the recent E-Class Mercedes has 108 sensors, bumper to bumper, 108, including body sensors and all that. Now, forget about the electronics that goes into putting 108 sensors. I'm saying that 108 sensors is constantly going to collect data, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is there for. Where is it going to put the data? It's going to have, you have to have memory for that, right? So memory is chip. And where is the chips going to come out? See, if you're going to create so much, see, to give a perspective to you, ever since human beings came onto this earth, right? I don't know, maybe millions of years, up to 2018 or 19, the total amount of data that we created was 40 zettabytes, 40. Okay, zettabytes, which is I think 10 to the power of 21 bytes. Between 2018 and 2021 or 22, the projection is we will create, our total data will be 160 zettabytes. That means 4 times what we created from the time we came onto this earth. That's the speed at which we are creating data and storing data. So 160 zettabytes of data is going to be generated and stored between 2018 and, which is 4 times what we created for time immemorial. So which means that memory industry, which is probably the lowest end of the chip, is demanding or going to demand so much more storage space, so much more data centers, which means again electronics, right? Again chips. So then you have, on top of that, you have automotive getting into electronics. You have footwear getting into electronics. You have toothbrushes getting into electronics. right? So where is it going to, you know? So obviously there is the reason for chip shortage is not created by the pandemic. It was created 10 years prior by not investing enough in capex.
Hmm.
But it's a political question. Nobody wants to talk about it, right? Because it's politically incorrect to say such things. The world is really dependent on really 2 or 3 big players for the basic ingredient, which is the foundry, and from there comes everything else. So it's a story that was probably complicated and compounded by the pandemic and by the 5G, by the automotive industry going electronic, and then the electric vehicles are threatening to make it even more so. Rather than, a pandemic created it because many plants shut down because of lockdowns or people are not coming to work. It's nothing to do with that. Pandemic is an easy explanation for a complex question.
And how
Everything is pandemic, right? मेरा registration क्या हुआ? Pandemic, lockdown, sir. And if you really look at how much lockdown we really had, probably we had 8 weeks of very, very strong lockdown in last year, and we have probably had another 5-6 weeks of very, very strong lockdown this year. Rest of the time we were all working, either working from home or working from office. It doesn't matter, but everything is blamed on lockdown and COVID, na?
So how is it affecting the Indian industry, the chip shortage?
See, so far I think we haven't seen a large effect, but I can already see many industries are getting affected. They are somehow managing, but I think a lot of projects have been delayed. Nobody is talking about it because many of these projects would have been evolving. So they would have said we will launch this in 2021, but probably they quietly pushed it out to 2023 or 2024. If you want a big example, the bullet train project is pushed out, right? By I think 5 years or 4 years or something like that. And some people said it's cancelled. The Japanese are saying it's cancelled, and the Indians are saying postponed. Right? I mean, I'm just giving you a wild example. But I think there's a lot of postponement, deferrals, which we are not talking about yet. But yeah, people are getting affected by. See, one thing that comes to mind: we were supposed to create 250 million smart meters for reducing power theft, power losses. 250 million smart meters in this country, which is probably part of the climate change agreement we signed and all that. I think that whole program, which was supposed to complete, I don't know, originally by 2025 or something, is probably postponed because I can tell that we are not able to build as many smart meters as we had originally planned. If I had planned to build at least 200,000 or 150,000 smart meters every month, I'm probably building only 50,000. But because it's not going to stop you from getting your power tomorrow, no, you're going to continue to get your power through the conventional meter. But the smart meter would have been saving energy. So you won't notice that you have lost out on something. But definitely if the power company is saving a lot more energy, less losses, transmission losses, it's going to come back to you as lower tariffs, isn't it? But you are not going to see that. That's going to get quietly delayed, but nobody is going to be able to see that, right? We will not know that there has been a delay.
And how long?
A lot of such projects, maybe a lot of automotive models that were supposed to be launched with all these features, probably the features have reduced or the launch itself has been pushed out. So, but without you realizing it. I know for a fact that we were making battery management system for electric buses for a large company, Indian company. I'm not selling any of those. The projections are all gone. Everything is slowed down. Everything is at least delayed by 1 full year.
And this is because of the chip shortage?
Shortage of parts, mostly.
And how long this chip shortage is going to continue? Is there any kind
I
of
don't
an
know.
idea?
Anybody's guess today. People say it'll. But Mr. Rao, I'll tell you, if for the last 10 years we have not created capacity, and that is what has come as a problem for us today, do you think many experts are saying in 2 years or 1 year, next year we won't have chip shortage? Do you think it will go away in 1 year? You created this problem over 10 years. It's not going to go away in 1 year, because see, I also told you, if you invest in a foundry today, it's going to take 3 years for the foundry to be operational. So how will you ever solve the problem in 1 year? It's minimum 3 years. No, gestation is minimum 3 years. So if you start today, and if 100 people start today to solve the chip shortage problem, in 3 years they will all be successful. So my guess is at least 3 years, if not more. Maybe there will be knee-jerk reactions. There will be some old factories which have been shut down, which will be restarted. But in spite of all that, I think unless we find a very, very smart way to solve it, which always happens in such a kind of situation, human beings, human mind always, is so innovative that they'll come up with a solution which nobody would have thought of. I'm very sure one guy out of the 7 billion people we have on this earth will come up with a fantastic idea to solve this problem in the next 1 year. Who knows? We have always done that. No? We've always done that. So, see, there is a saying that they normally say in the OPEC that the Stone Age did not end because we ran out of stones. Right? It ended because we found better ways of making weapons or tools or other things. We stopped relying on stones. So it's exactly like that.
So finally, what are the emerging trends in EMS market, and how Syrma technology is going to tap these trends?
See, emerging in terms of technology or in terms of product?
Technology as well as the opportunity, you can say.
Okay. No, see, I think the answer is already there in everything that we spoke of last 1 hour, but I'll again kind of summarize for you. IoT, which most people say Internet of Things, but we call it, inside Syrma, we say Intelligence of Things. That is going to make a huge, huge difference. And that is going to be the trend setter for almost all the products, all the opportunities that will happen one way or the other. It will be the intelligence of things. Some things becoming smart will open up the opportunity for all of us. In mechanical engineering or electronics industry, doesn't matter. So that is where I think all of us have to be keyed up and focused and watching that space very, very carefully. So what form it will take? It may come as smart meters in one case. It may come as smart toothbrush or smart footwear or smart cars, self-driving cars. Everywhere there is opportunity. In fact, I told you at the beginning that the total electronics market is projected as $6 to $7 trillion today, right? Internet of Things, IoT alone is projected to be $11 to $12 trillion opportunity in the next 5 years, 5 to 10 years. So you can imagine, everything will become subset of Internet of Things. But the opportunities are coming in say, you have smart air conditioners, which is the inverter air conditioners. Those are smart air conditioners. They learn in a given room, you can put them and they will constantly learn how much power to be put into the compressor for you to reach that temperature for a given room, right? Which means they're going to put less and less and less power to keep you cool. Which means if you are spending, 15 rupees per night for your air conditioner, you're going to spend 3 rupees. because of a smart product that is running inside the unit. So you won't even realize where all it is touching you. The smart revolution is going to touch you in so many ways we won't even realize. Today already the inverter ACs are smart. Your electric meters are smart. Your water meters are smart, and they're constantly giving you data. So when I say toothbrush to chappals are smart today, you can imagine everything in between is going to be smart on.
Right. So finally, what is your growth plan for Syrma Technology?
See, we one thing I didn't talk about is we have also announced a merger with an equi-sized company based in Gurgaon, Manesar last year in December. So that merger is going to happen sometime this year once the NCLT rules on it. So we will become double our current size. And I think once we consolidate and merge and build capacity, I think we can easily, and given the market conditions, we can easily say we will double that number in 2 to 3 years.
So what is your current turnover?
we are a private company, but I can say it's in the Syrma alone is in the range of at the run rate of about 600 crores per annum. Run rate.
Okay.
Annualized run rate.
So you are saying after the merger it is going to be double?
Double, yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Dr. Sriram, for sharing your thoughts on various aspects of electronics manufacturing services and all your also in your company. It was really a nice interaction with you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.